Okay, last day on our pinch pot planters. So you guys should make sure that you have at least 2 of the 3 features, either eyes, nose, or mouth, 2 of those 3. And then you have at least 3 appendages, so that could be the wings, that could be horns, that could be, some of you were talking about adding a tail. Quickly, I'm going to demonstrate the coil method in case you need a refresher on that since elementary school. Basically, to make a coil, you're just going to take any piece of clay, you're going to kind of squeeze it in your hands to make sort of an oval or pickle shape, and then you are going to roll that clay on your canvas board from finger to palm. Okay? One of the things that happens often when you're doing this, especially when the clay is soft, is it's going to flatten like what you saw there. Okay? When that happens, you pick it up and you're going to twist it in opposite directions. So one hand's going towards me, the other hand's going away from me, and you can see it gets a drill bit sort of look. And that's a good thing. It's going to help me to round my coil. So now I can go back into that coil rolling position. And anytime it starts to get flat again, make sure you stop and round it out. You don't want to keep trying to roll out a flat part. It's just not going to work. It's going to get worse. So the sooner you stop to roll that out, the better. Okay? In general, if you're going to attach a coil to anything on any sort of ceramic piece and you want it to be freestanding as in it doesn't have the support of the wall behind it in any way, you want it to be about the thickness of your pinky. That should make it solid and secure. If it's much thinner than your pinky, you might have a very delicate piece that you'll have to be careful of. So in general, keep it about that pinky thickness if it's a freestanding part of your sculpture. Okay, so I have my fun little guy here. I'm feeling like he looks kind of like a griffin or something, a little mythological character, just because of having the wings and then has this really sort of creepy mouth that I'm working on. So I've now made my coil and I trimmed it to the size I want. I'm going to add a little texture here, make this like a little lion's tail. Okay, I'm going to figure out where I want to place it on my pot, and I'm going to bring it around kind of maybe in front of the wing like that, so that it does have a little bit of some bulk but not too much. And I'm going to place it on there and mark above and below just like we've done before, and then score to attach, and also score this in and use my paintbrush to put on my slip. Hopefully this should be just easy now that we already have our base of these. We're just sort of adding those details, making these creative little creatures that are reminiscent of James DeRosso and his sculpture art. And again, if you need to look at any of his stuff or get some ideas for what other things you could add to your creature, like horns, mouth ideas, anything like that, there's a lot of that stuff on the video link on your Google Classroom, so you can always go back and refer to those things. So now I'm just sort of smoothing and sculpting it. Notice I attached it in 2 places, and this last place I sort of laid it against there, and I'm going to use my brush to smooth out any of the places I've scratched or roughed up in the process of attaching. Okay, and some of my textures come out of there, so I'm going to go back in, put a little bit more texture in that little fur part of his tail. Okay. I'm smoothing it out just gently with the paintbrush. You don't want to have those burrs on there because when it's fired, those burrs are very sharp. So you still want texture, but you don't want loose burrs of clay hanging off. You want to try and smooth those things out before you're done. Okay, last thing we're going to do after you have your 3 appendages and you have the face, we're going to add a little drainage hole so that these can be used to house a plant. Okay, so to add the drainage hole, I'm going to use my modeling knife and I'm going to go to the center of my pot. Okay, hopefully you can see that there. And I'm going to turn this like it's a drill. Okay, when you're doing this, make sure you're careful. I'm going to go ahead and hold this horizontally so I don't poke it through and get my finger. Okay, and I'm just going to turn it until it pops out on the other side. And be careful when you're doing this because you have the other end too. So you just are kind of holding your hand loosely around the end of the tool there. Okay, and you can see it poking through the other side. Okay, and then you can go ahead and pull that out. Now I'm going to spend a little bit of time smoothing that. I don't want any of those sharp burrs, again, as we just had talked about. So spend some time smoothing out the little drainage hole. I'm gonna use my paintbrush to go in there and smooth some of those edges out. Okay, you can try going from the other direction as well if you need to, if you think that's gonna help. You wanna make sure it's pretty big. I'm gonna take the end of my paintbrush and just turn that inside of that opening. The reason I'm doing that is because the paintbrush is a little thicker, and as you can see, it's gonna round out my opening there a little bit. And it also sort of smooths it out too. Okay, so and then I have it in there. I'm just gonna take my paintbrush with a little slip and sort of smooth around those openings. Okay, so now I have a little drainage hole. Okay, last thing is you have to have some sort of a bottom detail. You can use a cup for this to help you, just so you can balance it. Depending on what the size of the legs are that you're going to add to your little creature, you might want either a shorter, smaller cup so that it's not standing so high. What I'm going to do is just make little legs for this little guy, just to give him some more character. Okay, good way to make legs is to start with a coil. Other ways you can make legs, you can make them more flat, depending on what your creature wanted to be. If you want to make them flat, just be careful that you don't make them like pancake thin. That's okay when you're attaching it to there and it's going to have the wall. But if it's going to be something that's actually sitting out, you want to make sure it's going to be sturdy. So yes, I pancaked and flattened this, but it's still about the thickness of my pinky. Okay. And I'm going to use this just a general, I think I'm going to go with that griffin thing and make it have like these fun little like claws. So if that's the shape that I want and that's the size that I want, I'm going to make my next one while I still have this one out here. So I can make both of them at the same time and be certain that they match. Okay. In general, you're going to probably need at least a tri-stand, so 3 legs, or like 4 legs, because otherwise it won't stand very solidly. So you'll have to think about how you can do that so that it looks interesting and is also sturdy. Okay, so I have here what's going to be my 2 front paws. Okay, and the back legs I'm going to make more of an oval shape just to help it be more sturdy. Okay, so anytime taking my pieces, make sure you fully combine them. Anytime you're combining your pieces back together, you got to pat and also really mold them back together. Okay, I'm going to make these more of an oval shape, more like a hind leg of like a dog or a cat. That would be, it has sort of that rebound so they can bounce, jump. Okay, so he's got 2 thick front paws, and then I'll have these be the back paws. Okay, so to sculpt toes out of this, you can do this a couple of ways. You can actually take the piece you have and sculpt them from one piece, which is the stronger way to do it. That's how I'm going to do it. So I've just sliced all the way through, and now I can pull and separate the little toes here. Okay, you can see since I already had that oval shape, I'm getting some points, and then I can go ahead and sculpt them from slicing those 2 lines. It's going to give me 3 toes. This way, as I said, is much sturdier because it's already one piece. You're not having to score and slip details together. It's already together. You kind of bring those down, point them down so they have more of that griffin claw look. Again, it all depends on what kind of an animal. If you're doing something, maybe want it to have hooves or something instead. That might be a possibility as well, depending on what your creature is. Maybe you just want to make little stubby, little kind of elephant-looking legs, and you just cut them from your coil, and that would look totally fine too. It's whatever you're envisioning for your little creature here. Okay, so that's what I have. And then for the back legs, I'm not really going to see them a whole lot. Let's see how this positions. When you attach your feet, be careful that you don't cover your drainage hole. If worse comes to worse, you might just have to re-drill your drainage hole. Okay. I can flip mine over because I don't have any horns or anything, and that's of course the easiest way to do it. If you do have horns to work with, you're going to have to use more of the cup method and slip and score it on the outside rim of your cup so that it doesn't fall apart. Okay, so scoring really, really well here. And I want this to be the top, so I'm going to score here. Okay, I'm applying a generous amount of slip here. Okay. Another nice thing about having these feet is you're giving a little bit of area for the drainage hole to actually drain the water out. So make sure that you have a little space there. Okay, and again, slipping and scoring both pieces together. Okay, and so that's kind of what it looks like there. Of course, as you can see, I'm going to have to add these other little feet so they're stable. And one thing you want to check is, are they going to be the same length? I can tell right now that these are much thicker than these. Okay, so you might need to adjust. You might need to go back and make sure that what you're building is going to be the same thickness so that it's not wobbly. Okay, so you're just going to have to get it eye level and look at the side of that piece to decide whether you need to make it thicker or make it thinner. Okay, and I'm going to kind of hold it next to there to see if it's about the right thickness, and it looks pretty good. And for the back legs, since you're not going to see them much, all I did was make a quick little 2 slices in there. I'm not going to sculpt the claws for the back legs. Okay, and here's the other one. Really quick, another simpler way you can do the legs, if you want something just easier, you could just take a coil and you can literally just slice a coil into pieces and those become your legs. It's really nice and easy way to do it. Make sure you slice the bottom and the top so you have a flat piece. So you see here you could have, here's your little legs, and you want to make sure they're all the same length, okay? But then those could easily be slipped and scored onto here. Okay, again, make sure they're not any thinner than the base of your pinky there, because they're going to be holding up the entire weight here. So you want to make sure they are pretty darn sturdy little peg legs, if that's what they are, kind of like little pillars for the legs. That's fine too. And then you could always draw nails or toenails into the little pillar. So it's whatever you think is going to be the best. So now I'm going to rewrite my name on the bottoms of one of these feet because it's obviously hard to see now because I've put stuff over top of where it was written before. Okay, so it looks like this from my perspective. Okay, so I have the drainage hole and I have the 4 feet. Again, like I said, you're going to need to do at least 3 or 4. 2 is not going to be able to hold it up. Okay, so there's his little feet. Now what I'm going to do is set him down here and just do some light little tapping so that his feet level out. Okay, and maybe a little bit of sculpting at this point to get it to be secure. Okay, and so there we have his little claws. And now you can spend some time, you know, maybe adding some texture for the fur. Maybe I'll actually draw a detail in of the claw. Okay, but this is pretty much at the finished point. I have my name on there. Make sure that you rewrite that because you'll tend to lose it during your sculpting phase. Okay, and then I'm going to just set it out on my shelf. When you are finished, that's where it goes, and you're not going to wrap it up. That's a big mistake a lot of people make, is they will leave it wrapped up. Okay, if you've checked with me, if you're done, if there's nothing else you want to do, it does not go in the bag. It just sits out on the red shelf and it starts to dry. And once it's reached a good drying point, I will bring it around to the kiln. Okay, I'm also just smoothing out all my fingernail marks from the inside of there with just the slip and the paintbrush. So yeah, he's pretty adorable. Also slightly creepy, but also slightly adorable. Okay, so best of luck. Let me know if you guys have any questions.